I'm going to start out this video by saying that I don't think that this video will change anything, but I wanted to get my opinions out there because I'm getting quite annoyed with the way that the game is currently, and it just seems to be getting worse and worse and worse with each update. And the main thing that I'm talking about when it's saying it's getting worse and worse is the quality of the matches. The quality of the matches have gone down and degraded so much over the years that we used to be getting on average around about a 7 or 8 minute game, and now it just seems like every single game is a 15-5 loss or victory in about 5 minutes. Now, I fully understand that the average game is probably more around about 6 minutes or so, maybe 6.5, but the quality of the game has definitely degraded. I'm not denying that there's always been turbo games, because there's always been a stage where one team has been unbalanced and the other team is just absolutely awful, right? And they just get stomped. But more so recently, it's been to do with the matchmaker in general, and also the map design. The map design has become very bad. I cannot actually think of a new map that's been introduced recently that I thought, you know what, this is decent. There's a few old maps that I can think off the top of my head that I actually enjoy. Redshear, Himmelsdorf, Live Oaks, even to a certain degree, depending on what actually happens in it. But maps where it doesn't actually matter because you always have an opportunity to do something else. Maps like Airfield, Safe Haven, and other maps where it's just a corridor and you cannot do anything other than go to your set specific location for your class and then sit there and face a hold down tank, or you just sit in a bush and just hope that your team shoots what you spot. That is boring. Prokhorovka is one of the best maps in the game because there's so many opportunities for you to go and do stuff. You could go to the hill if you want to with your heavy tank. You go to the middle of the map if you want to with your heavy tank. You could go to the hill with your medium tank. You go to the middle. You could even go and spot if you wanted to with your medium, right? You could snipe. You could go into the left-hand side of the map with your light tank. You could spot the mid being aggressive in the EBR. You could go into a bush in Prokhorovka. There's loads of opportunities in Prokhorovka. And then you look at other maps and you just think, what the hell were they doing with the rest of them? Every single map is based on a free corridor design, and Wargaming absolutely seems to love this. I don't know why, because you get to the corridor, you then face with one hold down tank versus another hold down tank, and nobody has weak spots anymore. So everybody's flinging gold at each other, and then people then wonder, oh, why is everyone shooting gold? Because the game forces you to do so. You can't blame the player for shooting the better ammo. So the maps are just god-awful in this game. There's only a select few which are actually decent and allow multiple playstyles. And definitely do not get me started on mines being at tier 10 still, because that's beyond a joke. So the maps have definitely degraded over time. It used to be that you could have flanking routes. You could actually go places with different heavy tanks, and there'll be multiple places for you to sit, but not anymore. It seems like there's always only 1 or 2 spots, and it's always a shuffle within your team, and your team's getting in the way of you actually trying to play the game. It's very crowded. Does this mean that we need to get bigger maps? Maybe. Or does this mean that we need to limit it to maybe 10v10 instead of 15v15, and also limit the matchmaking, which we'll come on to in a second? I don't know. I do think that these maps aren't really designed for 15v15, but that's more of a question to do with Wargaming, because I'm sure that they could actually design the maps to be better suited for 15v15. And I'd also like to just address, obviously, you do get the confirmation bias of whenever you're having a bad session, you then think that every single game is a turbo game. There are still games where it would last a little bit longer. Usually those games last in a draw because no one can push anything. Because once you win a flank in this game, you cannot push it, because by God, if you try and push it, you're going to be pushing into about 4 or 5 TDs that are then just going to tear you apart, and you will never spot them. But that's a different issue entirely. But a lot of the time in this game, you either feel like you're getting a turbo win or a turbo loss, which is over within 5 minutes, or it's on the other end of the spectrum, and nobody can do anything, and it's just a stalemate. It's very rare that you actually have a game nowadays where you have to use your brain. A lot of it is just autopilot. I don't think I've ever thought about where I want to go in the last maybe 1,000 games. I've just been on autopilot to that exact spot, depending on the class that I'm in. And then I've just played my game from there. And the worst thing about that is, it works. Which means that it doesn't even matter what enemy team lineup they have. I go to that spot, and I am guaranteed to meet other people because of the way the map is designed. And it just shouldn't be like that. You should be able to actually outplay people by outthinking them. And there's just no room for that with these current maps. So the maps are awful. They need seriously looking into. But the second thing that is the worst thing about this is that how the matchmaking plays into all of this as well. I do not know how we are in 2024 and we still get 4 light tanks per team on Himmelsdorf. The matchmaker should be allowed to look at the map and then limit the amount of light tanks or even class-specific tanks in general by what map it is. By default, I think that there should be only 2 light tanks hard capped per team, and maybe even just 1 light tank per team dependent on certain maps. For example, if you get Ensk or Himmelsdorf, there's no real point of putting any more than 1 per team on that, because there's nowhere for them to really spot besides 1 location. The problem that you have with uncapping light tanks and having, say, 4 per team is that you're then fighting against your own team for spotting damage. And if that one person is in an EBR and you are not in an EBR, that EBR will always come out on top unless it is a complete idiot driving the tank. Or you're on Prokhorovka and you have a Manticore. In that case, then the Manticore is going to win. So hard cap light tanks to 2 per side, meaning that you have 4 maximum per game. And then you can also hard cap it maybe for, those city maps where it's only 1 per side. Artillery. In a perfect world, I would just remove the class outright entirely, but that's probably not going to happen, is it? I don't understand why why it's still possible to get 3 artillery per game. Yes, they said that they made it more unlikely, but the fact that it still even happens is beyond dumb. And let's be honest, 2 per team is way too much as well. If you actually want to make artillery balanced, which is not actually possible because of the way artillery functions in the game, it will never be balanced because I cannot do anything against someone shooting me through a house. Okay? Like, what am I meant to do? I could quite literally have a brick wall next to my tank, and if the shell hits that brick wall, I get stunned through it. The brick wall doesn't get destroyed, doesn't have anything wrong with it. But my tank, suddenly, I forget how to play the game. So if you want to somewhat balance artillery, 1 per team, no stun, and remove the bullshit artillery missions from the game. I don't know why we still have artillery missions in the game. Now, I don't see any reason why this type of stuff can't be implemented. For those that say, well, the matching time will go up. We have 100,000 people online on EU every single night. If I have to wait an extra 3 to 5 seconds to get into a game, if the game is going to then have a better quality of life, I think I will take that, and I think that a lot of more people will take that as well. Having a little bit longer in the queue for a much, much better balancing and experience in the game is 100% worth it in my eyes. So we've limited arty down to 1 per side and removed stun. We've got 2 light tanks per team. And now let's talk about the class roles, shall we? And also other classes if they need to be limited as well, but not so much, I don't think. In the game, we have subclasses of different roles. For example, we have tank destroyers. I think you know where I'm going with this one. Currently, a Grilla 15 will get matched up against a Badger, because in Wargaming's eyes, same tank. Even though that one is classed as an assault or breakthrough tank destroyer, whatever they want to call it, and one is classed as a sniper tank destroyer. The matchmaker doesn't look at this. It just goes, I see tank destroyer, I see tank destroyer, perfect match. The exact same thing goes for heavy tanks. A 50B could get matched up against a 279. Now that is in no way, shape or form the same tank. So by default, the matchmaker should be looking at this straight away and trying to match up, at least if it can. If it can't, then maybe of the closest kind of rival. It would improve the quality of the games we get. It would improve the balance of the games we get. Because if you're on Himmelsdorf and one team has a Badger and one team has a Grilla, the Badger is going to be better for that map. It just is. I would also probably hard cap the amount of tank destroyers that can be in the game to around about 4 per team. This then means that you have plenty of other room for the heavy tanks and the medium tanks in the rest of the team. There's been so many times where it's either been really heavy for the amount of tank destroyers, like something like 7 or 8 in a team, and then you just think, well, this is not a fun experience at all, because they're either fully camping or they were all tank destroyers with assault tank destroyers, and they get matched up against snipers, and it's all a mismatch. So I'd probably cap it to 4. Then that means that you have the other 2 being the light tanks, and then you have an SPG, making this 7, leaving 8 slots available for medium tanks and heavy tanks. Now, speaking of heavy tanks and medium tanks, obviously class-specific roles, if it can work out, more so for the heavy tanks, because in the medium tank one, it doesn't matter too much, because as long as a sniper medium gets matched up with a sniper medium, the rest of them are kind of whatever. And the exact same thing goes for heavy tanks. Make sure support is matched up against support, because otherwise it won't work. Now, I wouldn't cap it. You could probably just have whatever, right? Because it doesn't really matter as long as there is within there the actual class specific stuff. It shouldn't matter whether or not there's 4 heavy tanks or 4 medium tanks or 5 medium tanks and only 3 heavy tanks or whatever it may be, because it should be somewhat balanced. And I do think that the vast majority of the game should be filled up with either heavy tanks or medium tanks, because that is what makes the game roll and flow through the map. You need those medium tanks in the game. Almost, you kind of require medium tanks to be in the game, because if there's no medium tanks in the game, then there is definitely no room for kind of maneuverability, and it's a very stale game. Now, it's very rare that that happens, but it can happen. Now, I don't know whether or not we need to actually hard kind of limit, but not limit as in kind of restrict that there has to be medium tanks, if you know what I mean. There kind of always should be a medium tank in the game, or a few medium tanks in the game, to actually make the game flow. Anyway, I just wanted to get this off my chest, because I'm kind of... I love this game, right? And it's not just because I make money from it and I make content for it. I do enjoy this game. But recently, it's been really, really annoying me. And the constant kind of... We got an update for 1.25.1, and the only update that was in there was that they introduced Onslaught Light and Steel Hunter. That's no longer an update. That's just... That could have been a quick hot patch or a hot fix. Like, that didn't need its own update. There was nothing in this update. And they started out the year quite promising with, you know, vehicle rebalancing and stuff like that. And they really need to have a look at map rebalancing and the matchmaking in general, because that is the 2 things that are the biggest issue in these games. More so than any other balancing that you could do. Yes, there are tank imbalances. Yes, there are OP vehicles in the game. No one is going to deny that. However, the matches would improve tenfold if they addressed the matchmaking and also the maps in general. Again, I don't really expect anything to happen, but I just wanted to let you know. That's how I feel. Hopefully, one day we'll get things sorted out, but let's be honest, the track record for this stuff, basically nothing. So, I mean, the main reason why I even made this video was because I tried to make a video. I went into a game, tried to play it live, and it's just not even possible to do that anymore. Because the matches are just so fast and so one-sided that there's nothing to show you guys anymore. Like, it would be 10 times better if I just played on stream, went and got a somewhat normal game, finally. Normal, meaning that I can actually play the game, and then I showed you the replay of that. So, as I said, I don't expect much to happen. I mean, I'd rather try and it doesn't happen than not try and nothing happens anyway, you know? Thank you very much for watching. Let me know your thoughts down below. I'll see you on the next one.